jump straight ahead into our conversations, and I have the privilege of sitting here right at the Magdalena Grand Hotel this morning with Mr. Walter Stewart. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Now, Mr. Stewart is the president of the National Council of the Parent Teachers Association, and we've had some previous discussions virtually, so it's my pleasure to have you here with me. I almost said in studio, or on location here at the Magdalena Grand, here in Tobago. You're here in the flesh.
Sure.
This morning we're having a number of conversations, but we're starting off, similar to a lot of the topics that we heard in our news in 90 seconds as it pertains to the budget presentation being read this evening by the finance minister. Sure. Where you sit as president of the PTA for Trinidad and Tobago, education has always been at the forefront of the conversation when we look at development nationally. Mm-hmm. Time and time again, we see schools being reopened and a number of schools still not getting the type of attention that it needs. But the actual infrastructure is only one aspect of the overall educational development of our students. Tell us about what the PTA and some of the conversations with teachers and parents have brought to the fore as it pertains to what is being expected.
Thanks a lot. And good morning again, and good morning to your viewership. Good to be here. Let me tell you that a budget is more than just revenue and expenditure. It is about promises. And we know that there have been several promises from this government in their manifestos. It's also about priorities. What are the priority items that you are looking forward to in a budget? And also about the vision of the government for the national development and economic progress of Trinidad and Tobago. And as parents, we are impacted, obviously, by the budgetary allocations too. All ministries in particular. And like you said, education has been like the cornerstone of economic progress. And as such, we anticipate that the Ministry of Education will get the largest or the highest budgetary allocation in this, because traditionally we have been in the 1, 2, 3, National Security, Ministry of Health, and of course education have always been prominent with regards to the budget. So we're expecting, especially with the government's thrust and looking at education, that the Education Ministry will be given the largest budget. With regards to the expectations, one of the expectations that we have with regards to policy is the Teaching Service Commission and the appointment of principals and acting principals. Ms. Felix, they are, according to the minister himself, in a September post-CAB press conference, he said 90 out of 125 secondary school principals are presently acting. And there are 450 odd primary schools, and more than half of those primary schools, the principals are in acting positions. So that we expect the TSC, Teaching Service Commission, to move with post haste to ensure that we can appoint principals, acting principals, even deans in some instances, to these positions, speaking to stability now, and of course the long-term planning of the substantive post office holder.
Right, but these policies have been in place for a long time, but not implemented to have these positions filled. And seeing that this was an issue faced by the previous government, is it that there's a structural issue as it pertains to its implementation and not necessarily a policy level issue? And whether governments change or not, if the structure isn't adjusted, specifically by the public servants that are working there, then the problem will continue.
You're correct. To the credit of this government, in their manifesto, which of course is not government's policy, they did indicate that the TSC would not become full-time, because presently they are, part-time. Let me use the word terminology, part-time. So that by having them now full-time, they can now be able to appoint and reappoint, as the case might be, principal. They can have their interviews because they now have a full-time arrangement in place, and we can now have our principals and acting principals and deans in their substantive positions permanently appointed.
Excellent. So that means that what is being expected today is that announcement is made that it will be full-time. Let's talk about the infrastructure, because the infrastructure is not the education, but it's a key part, because we want our students to be functioning in environments that help to foster effective learning. In Tobago particularly, there is a situation where there is also that need for that allocation as it pertains to the schools. We've seen a situation where a school near nearby to us right now, that Scarborough Secondary School has been on the cards to have a new institution for a long time. And this is the cry of a number of educational institutions throughout the island of Tobago, but in Trinidad as well.
Correct.
Right? What are you expecting as it pertains to investment in educational infrastructure?
Let me take you back again to, some statistics. Because, Ms. Felix, there are about, again, as I told you, 400 plus primary schools. 55% of those schools are beyond 50 years. So they are aged infrastructure. The secondary schools, of which there are 120, I'm talking nationally now, we're national, of which there are 125, 59% of those schools are post-design life, over 50 years. So certainly, if we have to address the infrastructure of our schools, it would even cost us beyond our $7-8 billion to be allocated, because those schools are going to cost in millions, many of them. And especially now with the advent, well, not the advent, but the reintroduction of laptops in schools, the electrical load has to be conducive enough to be able to take the additional devices that all these 18,000 students throughout Trinidad and Tobago will now have coming into our present school structure arrangement. So yes, we are hoping that the government will now seek additional funding via loan or adopt a school. In the previous arrangement with the PNM government, it was the Adopt a School program, inviting corporate Trinidad and Tobago to invest in education, so that if this is reintroduced under this regime, we are hoping that we can get some valuable assistance with regards to the infrastructure, and our schools can be comfortable as well, because it's a facet of the school system to make our students comfortable and conducive to learning in our institutions.
Right, and even outside of the government making that announcement of that Adopt a School initiative, the principals and the PTA still has the ability and the authority to call on corporate entities to come and play a part in helping them to upgrade the institution that they're a part of.
And as an organization, we have constantly been doing that, and we continue to be able to call on corporate Trinidad and Tobago, even external agencies as well, to be able to assist with what is taking place in the education system as a whole, more than just the infrastructure, schools or learning institutions here in Trinidad and Tobago.
And, you made mention of the laptops that would be introduced. I believe it was said that it would be introduced at the end of September, maybe the beginning of October. So we're looking at that being rolled out now.
On a phased basis as well.
Right. And one of the things that I have always said is that bringing a laptop into school is one thing, but rearranging the curriculum to be able to facilitate that type of new technology in the learning process, the integration of artificial intelligence, and having those software systems and programs that change the way we see education, having, these students now doing their presentations to the class, having those PowerPoint presentations, submitting assignments via email, being sent assignments online as opposed to coming to class and still having that paper and having to fill out, those survey type questionnaire type questions. They go onto these platforms and they do their exam, they submit their answers and stuff, and they have that feeling of already being in a tertiary environment. Is this a part of the conversations that are being had as it pertains to that rollout of those laptops?
Of course, listen, globally, we are going that way, and whether or not we want to accept it, yes or no, is part of the course. So that we have to indoctrinate, as it were, our students to be able to be IT compliant and to be able to go along with what is presently the norm. It is no longer chalk and talk. We have gone way beyond that. So that we want to encourage our students with regards to the responsible and effective use of the device, because you are quite aware that many of our students could go awry and use the device for other inimical uses rather than for research and for learning as they should. So we want to encourage teachers as well to be able to guide our students to the responsible and effective use of technology via the laptops.
Excellent. And we want to shift gears a bit and talk about one of the things that were implemented in this particular term. We've seen it happen, but it has been presented on a policy level this time around as it pertains to the presence of TTPS officers on a number of the school plants. Give us a bit of an update, because last time we spoke about it coming into
Correct.
play.
Yes.
Now that it is there,
Yeah.
give us some feedback on how that has been going.
Well, it's early days yet to make a full assessment of what is presently taking place. We have seen the videos. The police officer was locked into a classroom. So there have been some issues with regards to it's called SOPU, School-Oriented Police Unit. So there has been some pushback, as it were, but there has also been some commendations to our police, and hats off, of course, to the TTPS and their involvement in our schools. How did we get here? You're fully aware, because we've been having so many suspensions, 21,000 suspensions in 3 years, and you look at your phone, look at your videos, you see the havoc taking place in our schools. So there had to be a hardline approach to school indiscipline and school violence. We are looking to be able to monitor for the rest of this term until December and see how we can now progress into ensuring that there is reduction in school violence, both in and out, because of course, if you can't do it in the schools are now going out of the schools and there's a brawl. So we're now trying to ensure that the presence of the police in schools, even in Tobago schools here, there is the police presence, and we appreciate that. And we are hoping that the presence of the police is going to mitigate substantially what is taking place in school indiscipline and school violence. So it's a work in progress. And
how do you think that has affected the morale of students? Because previously, one of the reservations had to do with, the environment that police presence creates,
yes,
for students and their morale. How do you think that has impacted, or do you think it has been having a positive or negative effect on that?
Well, let me say again that I want to make a definite assessment on that as well, but to mention that what we are looking for is that trust now between or among the police, the student, the teachers, and of course the parents. Once we can build that trust that the police is there to be able to augment, because there's already a school discipline matrix in all our schools. So the presence of the police is not to replace what is taking place with regards to the discipline in schools, but is really to augment your discipline matrix to ensure that you can contain the wildness, to use a colloquial word, taking place in our schools.
Excellent. We're going to take a quick break right here, and we'll be back with much more on this conversation right after this. See you soon. Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. Guys, this morning we are live from the Magdalena Grand Beach Resort here in Tobago. Now this morning I've been chatting with Mr. Walter Stewart, who is the president of the Trinidad and Tobago PTA.
Yes.
And we've been talking a bit about the budget and police presence in schools. Now, on a personal level, for you as a Trinbagonian,
sure.
We've heard a number of promises that we are not sure if they can be actualized in this particular budget. But what are you personally looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to a robust parenting program. Listen, some of the problems that we are facing in our schools is as a direct result of poor or no parenting whatsoever. The manifesto, again, I mean, reference to that, did indicate that there is going to be a parental involvement, or the emphasis greatly is on parenting involvement, because we understand that the government in itself cannot do it all on its own, so that there is need for organizations like the National Council of Parent Teacher Association to work along with. If we are able to guide and counsel our parents as to the proper way in parenting, communicating with their children, discipline, etc., in their homes, it will greatly assist in the way that parents treat their children, the way that children respond to the parents, etc., and will inculcate a better school environment when the students do go off to school. So we're expecting that the government would implement post-haste a robust parenting program, especially to help our parents in impoverished areas. Because I make the point again, when I got my first daughter 35 years ago, there was no manual to indicate how to parent. So that with the assistance of a parenting program, it will certainly help significantly how to parent, how to be a better parent. I take it further. Antenatal. When the mother, pregnant mother, is visiting the health centers, the clinics, there should be a parenting seminar of sorts, not only with her, but of course the significant other, the spouse as well, so that they understand that this is sanctimonious parenthood and that there needs to be a level of understanding as to what you are getting into as a parent.
Understood. And for you, how do you see that being actualized? Because I have seen it work outside of Trinidad and Tobago, but it is usually done at a community level where those community-based organizations would host those co-parenting seminars, you know, new or first-time parent seminars, you know, throughout the community and the different centers. Is it that you see it being integrated into areas of community development, whereby there are usually those short courses that happen within the communities? Do you see that happening as a part of that? Persons being able to leave with certificates saying that I attended this parenting course for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 8 weeks, as it may be, and this is what I've come away with.
Incidentally, all of the above. We presented, the National Council of PTA presented a 21-page document to the government on the parenting program, and almost akin to what you just indicated there. Safe and accept to mention that there'll be a follow-up as well. So besides the 8 weeks or the 6 weeks, as the case might be, there'll be a constant follow-up, where even we have asked the TTPS to get involved as well, so that we can now visit the homes and intimately see what is taking place in the homes and be able to guide further our parents, because there are socioeconomic issues taking place there as well in some homes, so that if we're able to counsel and guide and advise the parents who are facing extreme poverty, for example, or abuse in the homes, for example, or promiscuity, whatever at all there is, we cannot be able to guide the parents accordingly and counsel them. That is also part of the parenting program. So it's also a follow-up to the existing 8 weeks or 6 weeks period. A follow-up session as well, or sessions would be conducted.
Right, and you said that this 21-page document was submitted to the governor. Was that this administration or the previous administration?
Well, incidentally, both administrations. But when the government came into office April, we, as it were, reignited the whole process, and we said, listen, we have this parenting proposal, take a look at it, and let's see how we can collaborate in the interest of our parents.
Right, so you did have a meeting with the Minister for Education.
Well, we are under the Ministry of Education. I was submitted to that ministry, and from all indications, they are giving it some serious consideration. So we wait and see what happens, because I gather that there's now going to be one blanket parenting proposal under the school, under the Student Support Service Division, SSSD of the ministry. And of course, we are a part of that committee, thankfully. So of course, there are already inroads into formulating and bringing on board this parenting.
Right, and even as it is currently functioning under the Ministry of Education,
certainly,
is there that plan of integrating it with community development?
Right, yeah, because there are other agencies and ministries also involved as well. And the intent, you are correct, is to bring all under one umbrella, under one banner, and have a national parenting program throughout Trinidad and of course Tobago as well.
Excellent, because we definitely don't want to leave out.
Oh, definitely. Not Tobagonian, as you said. I'm a born and bred Tobagonian, so of course I must see the interest of my Tobago people.
Right, and even as it pertains to that budget that's being read today, were you able to have any of those conversations with the minister where you could have kind of slid in some of those requests for the budget this year?
And let me say, thankfully, that we have this open door policy with the new minister. Not that it wasn't there before, but it is now intensified, let me use that word, with the minister. So occasionally, yes, even in telephone banter, for example, we are able to project some of the issues that we want to bring on the table and which we consider priority items. And I'm sure that in the budget to be read this afternoon, we are going to be hearing some of those being ruled out, the proposal that we have been insinuating to the fiscal.
Excellent. And even as we wrap up our discussion this morning, is there anything in particular that you want to be sure to reiterate, or just to put out there to, you know, as we go into this budget this evening?
One of the issues we are looking at, Ms. Felix, is the involvement of our parents, closer involvement of our parents. And we are proposing legally now that the government would look at giving public servants, they have control of the public servants, time off once a term to attend parent-teacher association meetings. We think it is valuable that our parents get the opportunity. They have no excuse, because the government will give you the requisite time off, 2 hours, 3 hours per term, to be able to attend the PTA meetings of your children's school. And of course, we're hoping that we can pass legislation or some policy where that can be realized. And of course, after we do that with the government, we are now attacking, also we are now going after, let me use that terminology, the private sector, so that the same could be afforded to private sector employees as well.
Excellent. We want to thank you so much for your time here this morning and coming in and giving us those perspectives, particularly as it pertains to education in Trinidad and Tobago and investments in parenting.